Hello, I'm joined today by my guest, Mr. Ian White from Crux Careers. Ian, how are you doing?
I'm very good, David. And yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. We've just been
Good.
talking about the fact that we're talking we keep saying this over the past 2 or 3 years. We keep saying unprecedented times, but it feels like we've got even more unprecedented times and fresh challenges being thrown at us, both as sort of employers, but also as an industry as a whole. Over COVID, there'd been a crazy old time in our market, and I think it's fair to say that compared to other professions and industries, we probably came out of it okay, and therefore there wasn't a massive movement of staff because people were sat on great pipelines, they were getting great bonuses. It all seemed like the summer that would never end. And hey, we're in the harshest winter we've ever seen. Are people starting to sort of look at their employee relationships slightly differently now?
Yes, I think so. I think people are, well, I think they're looking at their cost base differently, and clearly headcount comes into that. And I also think that candidates are now, people that might have stayed with a boss that they didn't particularly want to stay with because of the reasons you just suggested. They've got a big pipeline, they had security and tenure of employment. They might now be looking for better run ships to join, or vessels that are more capable of steering through these unusual, unprecedented, as you call it, times. So we are starting to see a bit of flex and a bit of movement in the recruitment space, where it had been a fairly rigid scene, really, where there wasn't really much movement at all. So finding people was hard. It's still difficult. Finding good people is still difficult, always has been. Nothing changed, but it is just starting to ease off for for a number of different reasons.
And where you're finding people sort of leaving their current employers and they're moving within the industry, so they're going to a similar job elsewhere.
Yes.
What is it that they're looking for in that fresh challenge? So I guess what I'm saying is there any commonalities that you're seeing in the sort of reasons that people are leaving their employment?
Absolutely. The number one reason people leave their employment is their boss.
Right.
I mean, there's absolutely that's categoric. Most people do not leave their job, they leave their boss. Of course, we're seeing a bit of migration, people moving, as we've seen with COVID, full stop. The population has sort of found the new rhythm and the new beat as to where it wants to live. Well, that's obviously created some people leaving one employer to go to another. But generally speaking, people leave their boss, or the culture that the boss or their company is creating within that environment.
So without this being a very short question, because what is it that people can do to retain their staff? I mean, obviously, the shortest answer to that question is change. But what is it that they should be doing? Should they be undergoing a sort of an audit, as it were, as to what their culture is about and how they are to work with as employers?
Yes, I mean, the simple answer is, David, yes. I mean, I think if you are a serious business now, you need to make sure that your leaders are trained in the art of leading, because being the best estate agent doesn't mean that you're a good leader. I mean, they're two very different skills, and we don't tend to spend much time on leadership. We just assume it's a right. It's just like a passage of time right over a number of years. So I think training your leaders, but I also think the leaders need to understand it is not about the workforce, the team, whatever you want to call them, bending to the way you want it done. It is actually about you understanding each and every individual and finding what motivates, keeps them happy, spiritually, financially, on every level you can imagine. You have to keep people positive. And most people don't. They're very blinkered to a certain way of doing things, and what motivates them, they assume motivates everybody else. Well, that's just so far removed from the truth. Even more so with younger people coming up through they have many more colors of the rainbow now in terms of personalities than we had at my age.
Well, given the sort of choices that are available to young people, and that they live in a world where everything is accessible, everything is a possibility, and there is absolute sort of flexibilities in the way that people see the world, and they want the world to see them. Is this a new problem, or because it's a generational change, this generation expects different things from their employers, or has it always been this way it's just taken us a while to get around to realizing it?
Look, I think there's always been a generational problem between the business owners and maybe the people that are working within the business, because typically you have the age group would tend to suggest owners and or boards are older people, and they tend to by default recruit younger people. And I'm sure that the gap in thinking from me to my father, from my father to his grandfather, has always been there. But I think we are in a, things are moving at such a fast pace in terms of how people's lives are changing with technology, the way they're taught at school. I think the gap has become very, very wide, and I don't think the owners and the area managers and the managers and the people that hold the leadership roles are doing anything to bother to try and solve it. What they're doing is moaning about these people, but they are the workforce. We can't magic up another generation from somewhere.
Yeah.
So we have to find out how to light their fire, not the other way around.
Well, given that we've had a sort of an unprecedented time, to use that word again, but with people being offered places of employment. See, in my day, if you were looking for a job, you pretty much took what was offered to you, because you didn't necessarily have the luxury of choice or time or money, all of these different factors that put you under pressure when you're making those career moves. But we've seen quite a few candidates actually take a little bit more of a relaxed stance, if you like, where they can pick and choose the offers that they're getting. And you've seen people rejecting decent offers. What are the reasons that people are rejecting employment offers?
Absolutely, because they believe they've got something better to either stay with or to move to. I mean, most good quality candidates would receive multiple job offers now. I mean, it would be unusual for somebody to get one job offer. If you're naive enough just to think that they should come and work for you because you're a really good guy and that you're the best thing since sliced bread, then you need to take an arrogance pill and sort yourself out, because that's not the reality of it. The candidate will make their choice based on a whole plethora of different things. And if they're not choosing you and you keep not succeeding, you've got to wake up to the fact it's not the candidates that are the problem. It's not even the recruiters that are the problem. I know I shouldn't be protecting recruiters particularly, but it's actually something internal that's the problem. It could be your packages, it could be your promotional ladders, it could be your pay grades, it could be your working hours, your working pattern, it could be a feeling of a track record. Maybe you've had a very high turnover of staff and there's people talking negatively about your business in the space.
Well, we're just talking about turnover of staff. There's a perception sometimes that within our industry, and particularly used to see this within the more sort of corporate, almost franchise models that you used to look at, there was a poor retention of talent there, or people staying in a position for a long time. And it was due to back then, it was due to hierarchy. You had a junior negs that were treated like absolute grunts till they broke, and those that stayed on, they had to progress to manager and to the next level and to the next level in order to go anywhere in their career. And because of this, you got quite a high churn rate. Is that still the case today? Are we still suffering as an industry from a particularly low retention rate?
Yes, I would say that the estate agency sector has one of the worst retention rates, but up until recently, it was churning to one another. Now, more recently, it's been churning out of the industry into other sectors. So the only thing that's changed is that the churn has been away from agency, but the churn is still, in fact, it's been more of a problem because you lose somebody, it's harder to replace.
So where are all the good estate agents? Where are we going to find this new talent from? So you're saying we're losing a little bit of talent to other industries. Are we seeking to do the reverse of that? Are we seeking to sort of employ people from other industries that might be allied to ours?
I think some are, but I think it starts with understanding why people would want to move away from the industry. So maybe what we need to do is start rethinking and reimagining. We should become. Estate agency was always a place that if you had a bit about you, you may not have been the most educationally, you might not have come out with the best qualification, but you've got a bit about you, you can talk, you've got energy, you've got ambition, you've got a good work ethic, and you've got a bit of fight in your bones. you could make more money than most of your friends could make doing what they did, and it was an ability to do it. So people were prepared to work the extra weekends, they're prepared to work under the sort of pressure we work under, they're prepared to work the late nights, they're prepared to give up a little bit in order to get the extra money. The problem is now you can earn £25,000 a year doing 1 or 2 shifts more than you should do in McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yet we've got people trying to offer estate agents £15,000 salaries. Well, we're in a credit crunch. Where would you go if you've still got your car rent to pay, and you've got to pay your food bills, you've got to put clothes on your back, you've got to start saving for your own life and future? You may be robbed of the decision of working for an estate agent. So I think we're struggling to get the people in at the bottom end, and the ones we're getting in at the bottom end are probably not of the right caliber. And then we struggle to keep the ones that make the right caliber because we don't have the right environment, leadership, or structures to do it. So change the attraction.
Thinking of that, you know, we always compare ourselves to, say, the American market or the Australian market in terms of the way that estate agents market themselves and perceive themselves. And if you do listen to the sort of stuff coming across from, say, Australia or the States, what you will notice is that the agents are tremendously upbeat about their results and about what they're earning. And some of it makes for great TV. There are loads of those Selling Sunset programs there, and it's all about sort of telephone number fees and, you know, really sort of high bracket property. But is there a sense that we as an industry, we don't talk so much about the fact that it's a really good living for somebody with relatively low skill set in terms of the training you need to be an agent? You can just, as long as you've got your smarts about you, you can hit the ground running from day one.
Yeah, so but I think it's now a very thin layer. Look, we're much more reserved as a nation than either the Australians or the Americans. So yes, we're probably less likely to boast, if for want of a better term, and it might be seen as crass or embarrassing if you publicly talk about your successes. However, it is a very, very thin layer of people that are truly making a very good living out of estate agencies. So the problem is, yes, you've got a thin layer of people that do very well, whether employed, self-employed, or business owners. But you've got a whole layer of people that in reality could do better elsewhere. So, and the agents are their own fault, because one of the biggest issues is that we don't pay enough. And the reason we don't pay enough is because we've driven our own fees down against one another.
Yes.
So we've imploded our own industry. Just think about that for a minute. We have destroyed our own industry.
It's 100% true, because if you look at the erosion of fees or how that race to the bottom, just inevitably, we talk about trickle down economics. This is it trickling down. If we don't earn enough in terms of the fee that we're paid by the members of the public, we in turn can't pay our staff anywhere near what we'd like to.
Yeah, we don't. As an industry, we don't collaborate. We're just about starting to think about innovating when other industries were doing it 25 years ago. We don't collaborate as an industry for the common good. We have FOMO over every instruction. And, you know, the business leaders in general send their troops out and allow them to charge whatever they believe is right, not what they believe they're worth. Or in some cases, it's actually the business owner themselves doing it. So, and I don't have a problem with a low fee model, but if you're going to be a low fee model, accept what you are, be a low fee agent, you know, deliver a low fee service. But if you're, you know, if we want back the true champions, we have to provide an environment. Now, the environment at the moment, actually, funnily enough, isn't quite as money motivated as it was in my day, but it's clearly still a very big factor. The hygiene of a decent basic salary. Company cars are a virtual non-existent. Well, 20 years ago, they were virtually the norm.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got rid of the company cars because it's convenient for the business not to have a fleet to look after, and they don't like the fag burns and the dirty cars and the crash cars and the scratched cars. But the price they're paying for not taking on that effort and aggro is they lose people that a company car would have been an attractor. Being flexible in the workplace in terms of maybe working 3 days from the office, 2 days from home. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but we are losing people to that model in other industries. So
in terms of, well, let's try and give people some tips that they can sort of hang their hat on. If we're looking to make offers to candidates in this climate, what are the sort of things that we should be incorporating into our offers in order to make them more attractive in order to retain the right sort of people?
Number one, honesty. You know, be sensible about what this package actually is. Let's not tell porky pies, because most people, anyone with a brain that you want to employ, you know, if you tell them they're on target earning is £75,000, but it means you have to do 15 times your annual turnover that you've ever hit on a good day, they're going to say, be honest. Secondly, I think we do at the moment have to probably accept that the basics need to be a bit higher, the commissions a little bit lower, in order to provide some certainty in these unprecedented times. Because you've got to remember that the guy or the girl that you're looking to recruit, their pound is also not going as far. They've still got to put petrol in their car. They've still got to pay for their mobile phone bill. They've still got to go out. They've got to buy clothes. They've got to socialise. They've probably got to pay rent or a mortgage, or at least be saving up for those things. They may have to pay their parents a rent. If their pound is not going as far, you're to just talk to them about OTE and assume that they get it as a youngster and can make that commercial decision to go with the higher OTE just because you told them it's going to be higher.
Yeah,
you're asking an awful lot. You know, be intelligent enough to get people to within your organization by having attractive packages, but once they're in, then giving them the option maybe to lower basics to go for higher commissions once they can see for themselves the reality of your, you know, I understand a £1 million branch, is going to be able to pay more commission than a branch that turns over 200,000, but there are both ends of that spectrum. Expecting the candidate to understand that you're a £1 million branch over a guy down the road is unrealistic.
So given that there is that sort of massive spectrum, isn't there, within our industry, to a sort of single brancher run by, you know, a couple, someone on their own, it doesn't need to be a massive team. We accept now that with a bit of innovation and with a bit of technology, actually you can get a lot further on your own or with a couple of people than you could have done years ago, in terms of the number of staff that you need. But how do I then compete in this marketplace? I am looking to employ somebody. I'm a small single brancher. I know there are £1 million businesses out there. I'm not a £1 million business. I'm not there yet, but I'm on the way. How do I make my business attractive? Where does that start?
So put yourself in the candidate's shoes. Think about all the things that would be attractive to you, which will be things like salary, basic salary, OTE, car, no car, pension, holiday entitlement, hours, any benefits, and the culture, the training, the promotional ladder. Is everything clear and crisp with a particular employer? So many people talk to an employer about, well, we'll discuss that when you're here. I'll fill that in once you've arrived.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to know that right now. And it's said flippantly, probably without much understanding, but you're just setting, it's like going to a valuation and the owner of the property who's deciding between you and 3 different estate agents. When they ask, can I ask how you do your photography? Well, I'll tell you after you've signed up.
Yeah.
It's not a realistic, you are being interviewed by the candidate.
So more is definitely more in this case. You need
honesty
as much
and detail.
Information as possible.
Yeah, honesty and detail and clarity about what you can give them now and what you can't, because you don't know. But sort of suggesting, well, we'll talk to you. It all becomes and feels a bit smoke and daggers.
So but is the right thing to, you know, some people say, look, I just want my new junior negotiator, if they're even called that these days, but I want them to focus on just doing deals and just arranging viewings. That's what I don't want them to see beyond that. Or does it make sense to sit them down from day one of that interview and say, look, this is where you'd be starting, and a career progression for you through our business, if you're successful and work hard, then it looks like this. You will then move on to that, and then we will expand your knowledge base by having you do X, Y, Z, and then hopefully that will allow you to be a valuer one day. And blah, 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 blah. Do we do that, or do we sort of are we advised to sort of play our cards close to our chest?
I definitely wouldn't play your cards close to your chest, but if you are a business that prefers to have what I call compartmentalizing, that, okay, you join me, you're going to learn that, you're going to become a master of that, and then we'll build your career, and I want you to focus on doing deals, then be that business, but be transparent about what that is and how it works and what's expected and what the timeframes are. I always wanted to get the next job up. So for me, that would have been that would have been the antichrist of attracting me. I wanted to know the quickest, fastest route, what behaviors you needed from me to get the guy at the top's job. That was me personally. Other people want to know, what do I need to do to make you happy with the role that you're offering me today? And different businesses handle it differently, and different candidates or different individuals will have different. So I don't think that's for me or anybody else to dictate. But whatever it is you are going to be very clear. I mean, ask yourself, for example, how many people actually hand a candidate a document that says this is what my business stands for at the point that you interview them? How many do it? Some do, because as you know, I do consultancy, so I'm aware of it and I provide that guidance. But
well, I was going to ask you, so for agents that don't have a clue, that haven't begun to think like this yet, but they realize that this is the way that it's going, and you know what, there are a lot of agents who in their head have a set of values that they think their business stands for. And when I say in their head, that's the key. They've not verbalized it. They've not put it on a piece of paper. It isn't stuck on the wall. So it's all in their head. And they think sometimes that their employees magically absorb this vision of the business and what it stands for by osmosis. That just simply doesn't happen. You do need to work on that, don't you?
Yes, I think you need a document. I think it's a document that needs to be reviewed. I think it's a document that people need to be held accountable to, that are measured and monitored. And of course, you need to make sure that at the point anybody comes into the business, just think about it as preparing for evaluation. If you are interviewing somebody, prepare as if you are about to win the instruction. You are going into battle for this particular person's signature. You may decide during the interview that it's a battle you don't want to win. That's fine. But if it is a battle that you want to win, have you handed them a job description? Have you told them about the personalities of the people that work with us? Have you shown them the cultural deck, or whatever you want to call it, the sort of what we stand for document? Have you shared with them your vision statement for the business in terms of its fiscal achievements and its cultural aims? Have you shared with them your policy on cultural and community projects? Because if you haven't, you've gone on an evaluation, told someone the price, and they've not chosen you, and you want to know why.
Yeah.
You haven't actually sold
yourself, don't you?
Yeah, you've got to sell yourself. You've got to sell yourself honestly, because that will avoid you recruiting the wrong person. It's good to be rejected if you've been honest, because the person probably rejected you because they didn't like your values or cultures. Well, that's a good thing. But if you're losing people that would have fitted in well, but if you say to most people, look, okay, just tell me, right, what's your vision statement and what does your business stand for in a sentence? They can't go and say, well, they go to their drawer, pull it out and say, well, there you go. There it is. They will have to stop and think.
Yeah.
Would you join a business with that? Would you honestly join a business? Now, obviously people do. So I know I'm a devil's advocate. But...
You know what? I'm trying to think back as to times that I've accepted a job, and in my career, I think the very few businesses, but maybe I belong to a different generation, that could turn around to me and tell me what their business stood for in terms of its place in the community, the work that it does and what's important to it. I think I was always sold on benefits. So you work hard, you may be able to earn this, you may get a BMW 3 Series one day if you're a good boy, all that sort of stuff. But you was never really sold on the ethos of the culture, which I suppose is actually more important.
Well, it's definitely more important to the generation that we're now wanting to employ. So the communication you just described would have been perfect for me. How much?
Yeah.
How hard have I got to work? What's the next rung up the ladder? And what have I got to do to get to the next bird? What have I got to do to get to the 3 Series? That's fine for me personally. I think that's a generational thing rather than a personality thing. But other people want to know a little bit more. They genuinely want to come and join a culture. They are actually more, they're definitely more likely to shift jobs every 3 or 4 years anyway. I mean, there's been some research on that people are more likely because they feel that they become, that they've absorbed everything that particular place is going to give them, and they go to somewhere else. Not necessarily for money, but just in some cases, just for, I suppose they get bored quick. I don't know. But there is a little bit of that. But if you want to attract them and hold them for as long as you can, and maybe beyond, you're on evaluation. And then when they join, you've been instructed and you've got to sell it. And then when you sell it, you've got to get the repeat business and you've got to get the review, and you've got to get, put as much effort into the fear of missing out on an instruction as you do fear of missing out on a great candidate. and you'll solve most problems.
And luckily, in this day and age, this kind of consultancy is more affordable to smaller businesses than it ever was. It used to be something that was the perks of only a privileged few. I think it's fair to say now that you have products and solutions that fit all manner of businesses, even the smaller ones.
Yeah, for the smaller businesses, we tend to group them into peer groups so that we can create a cost-effective method of networking, cross-pollinating ideas, problems, and solutions, and provide our input advice, and give them access to some of the bigger agents who can afford us on a more one-on-one basis and get access to us as individuals to, in effect, be a proper full-time non-exec or consultant in their business, nearly always around culture, training, developing, strategy. But if you've got a very well-run business with a very clear strategy, a very clear goal, a very defined culture, you tend to be an attractor and get more lifers anyway, just by that very inertia. It's one of the things that tends to happen because, well, obviously the reasons are obvious, but being charming on an interview will get you some candidates.
I love that term that you used, lifers, because it's very rare to find somebody that stays with one business for sort of 30, 40 years anymore. People do sort of tend to move about. What do you currently see at the moment in terms of those people that are happy with where they're working? Are they staying long? I mean,
they have been. There certainly has been a reluctance to move, but again, as I say, you're only one bad leadership decision away from losing your champion. So people don't stay as long. But I'm not so sure. I mean, part of that's possibly the people we're dealing with. The younger generation, maybe a little bit more have itchy feet in general terms, but most of it is because the environment we provide isn't conducive to keeping them. Because actually, what we see, David, is people either do stay for life, or the churn is immeasurable.
Yeah,
it's like I know some people that have probably filled the same post 3-4 times in maybe 2 years. 18 months, 2 years, the same job.
Yeah.
Not because of promotion, because somebody keeps leaving that job.
Yeah.
No one stopped to think, is the job right? Are the conditions right? Is the pay right? Is the leader right? Is the environment right? Are they sat by the cold air? I don't even know. Surely you do a minute SWOT analysis of why this role keeps being vacated. They don't. What they do is they keep saying the candidate was shit and they get another one in. It's just like they keep, it's like Groundhog Day.
If you want to improve your culture, come up with some values that resonate with the people that are coming to be interviewed by you, and to make your agency a sort of an attraction rather than just another position. You could do a lot worse than spend some time talking to Ian and his team, because they do have the answers, they do have the experience, and I think they could be immensely helpful. Thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you, David.